of those things I think are still kind of nascent, but could become really viable in terms of revenue streams. And so it's also another way to look at it, not just from a consumer perspective, but for the artist as well, looking at how they can make money.
So and last quick one on the commercialization with creative opportunities and commercial opportunities. I think again between the Web3 world and the Metaverse, we call things virtual, right? And I think in the Web3 world, it's called collectibles or NFTs. They're kind of the same. So even though Roblox wasn't on chain, we were driving hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue for people buying virtual goods. So the opportunity again for the artists that we work with to connect, the seen the same with their fans, where one, they don't have to go out and tour. Now touring is very difficult because always you wouldn't make money on streaming platforms, so you make it from touring. But now with Brexit and the war and Ukraine and inflation, it's a lot of like mid-level artists in their stadium are losing money. So it's a really important time, I think, for all of us in the industry to help the creators earn this extra money. And it is tangible. It's not a pie in the sky thing in the future. It's already happened. And I think it's just, again, getting a mass adoption, agencies coming in and helping consumers, have these great experiences, and then artists and other creators kind of benefit commercially. And then creatively, like I remember we did KSI, who's a UK rapper. And the first time when he built his world, and like 21 Pilots, when they get to run around the space that they built, they're just like kids in a candy shop. It's like so exciting to express themselves, not just in a 3 or 4 minute song, but in these, virtual canvas and running around and engaging. 21 Pilots is like working on an HBO TV show. There's like all the lore and the backstory and the games and interactive experiences. So I think it's going to be a really good time for the music industry because unlike TV and film, they're not scripted. They're 24/7, engaging with their fans and being creative. Anyway, so we're passionate about this.
Yeah, I was just going to throw in one thing that, we talked about ways that this allows you to do things differently than, in real life. And the other thing we've been exploring is how do you create communities around this? How do you create watch parties, right? So instead of it's, all 11 million people together, you can create groups and communities and people can gravitate toward those who are like them, right? And have conversations and build, a much richer fandom than you would have gotten previously.
We jumped into the Metaverse 17 years ago, built about 40 of them. We did a live Chemical Brothers concert in the Metaverse in 2006, I think, somewhere around there. Really the whole reason that we put Sizzle together, and it's the reason that you were just mentioning a minute ago, Travis, is that the layer of commerce, the layer of fan engagement, the layer of opportunity, when you take all of these different platforms, whether you divorce it from Web3 or not, at a certain point in time, driving somebody from a specific metaverse to a specific location in the real world or to an online space, that's really the problem as the overarching mortar that we've created for Sizzle worldwide. It doesn't matter what medium you're in, because we've been spending 43 years driving consumers from movies and television shows to consumer packaged goods and retail locations and experiences like concerts and vice versa. And our clients were spending more and more money having us make all of these individual custom technology solutions. So that's why we've spent millions of dollars just building one overarching platform of service at Sizzle, so that any one of these problems that you're looking to overcome, in whichever direction you're driving the consumer, we've already figured out the methodologies, and it's very cost effective to hyperconnect these and to generate commerce in real and online.
I think driving off that in 2023, you're going to see more of a trend, what Ryan's talking about. I think people moving away from the early entrant, if you call it Metaverse 1.0, of Epic and Roblox to more open Metaverse platforms, where brands that you guys, are controlling hundreds of billions of eyeballs, right? So you can move people wherever you want to move them, or with media. So I think I've seen a bunch of them on board of different companies, but there's a bunch of new companies that are building almost like Metaverse as a service, or like Metaverse platforms, and that allows you, if you have a campaign, you can have an AR. There's a company called Vatten, so they did activation at an event, a football game, AR, and had to find footballs around the event. And then you got a collectible in the wallet, and then you went to a virtual world for a concert, and all this was done off the back of a brand. And for the brand, you don't necessarily need to go to a platform like one of the big ones. You can kind of activate directly. So I think there's going to be more of that trend where you guys are maybe going to invest in some or build your own or help brands activate directly and have that relationship directly.
And that's the real tension we're feeling right now, what you were just talking about. And really, we understand, we all enjoy what I call the subsidized internet, right? The free internet every day that's subsidized by brands, that's subsidized by publishers. That's the internet we understand and know today. The tension that, I think is still being sorted, is being understood, is being worked through, and ultimately I think is being smoothed out, is from the the passionate fans of the decentralized internet. And that say, we don't want subsidies. We want to own our experience completely. We want to own our assets. We want to own our communities, our consumers. Eventually these become brands. Well, it's not going to be absolute one way or the other. The subsidized internet is not going anywhere. We all enjoy this quite a bit. But there's a growing demand for decentralized internet experiences as well, and owning truly virtual things, having utility provided to you by tokens. Now, when we can see these two things starting to come together, I think you get that spirit of the fully decentralized web experience that some people hold very closely onto with the subsidized internet experience, right? We get to hold a token that unlocks access to some utility or an experience or a digital collectible. And I think that's the trend that I'm seeing, and some of the experiences that are launching now with Web 2.5, as the term was thrown out. For us as brands, we love Web 2.5 because it's accessible. It's accessible to consumers. It's accessible to brands and brands themselves who aren't quite ready to go fully decentralized. May never be. So, long way of saying that this tension is going to exist for a little bit, but I think it's going to push us into some really innovative experiences.
Yeah, and just, adding on to that, not just from the brand experience, but from the consumer side, right? Being able to, I mentioned that sense of ownership. It also includes owning your own data, right? And not being dependent on, or whatever, and it's so much better for brands too, right? You are allowing them to have the correct data, not a guess at who you are, right? Or approximation, but who you really are. And you allow it for the brands that you trust and the brands that you want to engage with. I think that's a paradigm shift that we're not there yet, but I think that's what's part of what's going to come with this.
I agree with that. We tied into a company called Tartle, and they facilitate consumers being able to sell their data to the brands, and we're incorporating that directly into Sizzle, so that we're never one of those companies that's aggregating data without the consumer's permission, and we'll never sell it. So the consumers are incentivized to sell that data to the brands, and it puts them in the power seat. And a lot of them are excited about having that income opportunity and that connectivity because it gives them a deeper experience, right? 100%.
I was going to add, I think, one of the things about Web3 and the chain is the benefit of interoperability, ultimately. I think we're still early days, but the idea that a consumer can essentially take their identity or their profile or their avatar and go from place to place. I watch my daughter, who's obsessed with Roblox, and she is very, very proud of her avatar. She spends a lot of time making the outfits and all the good stuff. And she would love to take that to school with her, to put that in many places. But right now, everything's sort of a closed ecosystem. I think about myself for social media. I have like 10 profiles. Do I have the same photo in every profile? No. Would I like for it to be more consistent? Probably. But again, everything's so bifurcated right now. I think over time, we're going to see a lot more opening up of ecosystems and the ability for consumers to kind of move through that friction and pain point and have potentially just one identity that can travel with them wherever they go on the internet.
I will take the contrarian view on that one. So I don't agree. I think because we had this, one of the parallels is like going back to the carrier days, and I think when there's a real consumer issue, if you remember back in the days, you couldn't text your friends on other carriers. If you weren't on T-Mobile and they were on Verizon, a lot of people forget that, and then they all got connected. I think that's one notion of like disconnected metaverses. Is there that consumer pressure where I get annoyed and I want to text my friend Todd who's over there and I can't? That's a frustration. I think the situation we now have with at least the avatar-driven metaverses is it's kind of like having Singtel and Vodafone. You've got two massive, great ecosystems. So the friction, the consumer friction to drive that on their product roadmap, I think it's lower. So I think the newer platforms that come out, there'll be more openness in terms of goods and rewards that get transferred, but I think it's fine to have different profiles. I don't think you want your Twitter profile to be the same as your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
So I think, but in terms of people getting rewarded and data, I love that. There's a company in the UK called Generate, which is when you browse, you actually get value back in terms of brand rewards, and it's a great idea. Brave is trying to do it, and what they're doing on the Web3 side. So that whole notion of delivering something to the brand, from the brand of value, where if I say I really want to go to, whatever, Phoenix, or I want to go to Phoenix, Iceland, and somehow an airline gets that data and I allow them to have it, and then they offer me a companion ticket to Iceland, that's money in my pocket. That's like magic. So I think it's moving in the direction of providing data in exchange for value. So from an Napster perspective, think about, you'll see in 2023, I love making playlists. I've made hundreds and hundreds of playlists. What if in the ecosystem moving forward of Napster, as we come out with the token, you could get rewarded and actually have making playlists be a job. And you could get rewarded, and you have brand rewards, you get free service, and you get all these benefits, and you get notoriety. So it's kind of pushing things back to the people that are creating these, creating value in the ecosystem. We had that at Roblox, where if you think of the atomization of music, where I make a beat and you make a song, and we're all in different countries, and we can all come together and work with big artists and small artists, and don't think about the evolution as a format evolution, but more of a relationship evolution, where we're partnering directly with artists and whatever they want to create, whether it's short form video or songs or kind of subscriptions or virtual experiences and meet and greets, we'll be the partner to enable that, which I think is a fundamental difference to the last 20 years of media, which has been format focused, of either short to long, of length, or free to pay. So that's really been the only innovation in the last 20 years. So we're excited for this brand innovation of relationship and data, and then this evolution of relationship around fandom between either it's brand and customer or artist and fan, which is really going to unlock the next 20 years of value. And again, it's been kind of boring the last 20 years, so I think hopefully the next 20 years can be more fun, and brand marketers can do more exciting things and do things that you guys do.
It's great. We've got a very diverse room. Everybody's here for a reason, trying to advance your career, figure out what this metaverse thing is, how it's going to be applied to what you're doing. So I want to focus a little bit about recommendations. We've got not much time left. Keith, I'll start with you. You brought up education earlier. Recommendations. What do you advise people in the room to do to pursue their careers? If you're speaking to a brand, what would you advise them to do if they're pursuing Web3 and the metaverse? Give some advice.
Yeah, sure. So, certainly brands look to us, look to Publicis Group agencies, Publicis Media, to consult and help them, to guide them into the future and where they're going to go, and how to maintain or grow this relationship with the consumer, their audience, right? It starts with education, right? And so we are incredibly fortunate to have the volume of education, YouTube videos, blogs. This generation of what you would call Web3 is being built on the back of Web2 and the content distribution and everyone's contributions to that. You can learn for free. That's a great place to start. You can utilize your partners to help guide you very specifically. And next, I think you want to look at what do you want to carry over from this generation to the next generation? What's important to you as in your individual careers? What's important to you as a brand? To say, if we're going to evolve, that's great, but we still have to maintain what's important to us, what's in our core, and what do we want to carry over? Then what do you want to reinvent? Because in immersive experiences and in the metaverse generation, the brand you are today doesn't have to be the brand you are 3 years from now. Your products can evolve, your relationship with your consumer can evolve, and you want to decide now what you want to be, or at least you want to have aspirations, or have an agile roadmap to where you aspire to be as a brand or as an individual here, and then keep that very nimble. Keep that reactionary to things that are happening, but also very strategic in things that you can see out ahead and what are risks to your business or your relationship with your consumer. Learn, plan, and strategize, and ultimately go execute. And what you're looking at today from the metaverse, it's like that motivational poster of the iceberg, where there's that little piece of ice poking out of the top, a gigantic iceberg at the bottom of this. Brian, 17 years in the metaverse. This has not been built overnight. It didn't start becoming built when Facebook changed over to Meta. There is years and years of foundational, right? There's years and years of foundational work that's gone into it. We're enjoying the spoils of that now. I think the last thing I'd say is, if you're in this room, contribute. What do you add to it? It might just be a perspective. It might be you're a coder. It might be you're a designer. Find a way to contribute. Find a way to get that to as much of an audience as you can, because in the next generation here, certainly with brands, it won't be about brands just yelling at you and talking about you. It'll be a collaborative relationship. You'll be able to contribute, you'll be able to decide, you'll be able to influence, you'll be able to have exclusives, right? And all this can happen in immersive spaces. So I'd say lean in, participate, and share with the world.
It's great. Very good.
So I would say, think about the human part of the experience in all of this, right? Where are the people at the core, right? The consumers, the customers. When we launched I mentioned we launched this Metaverse Continuum business group, right? It's continuum because it's changing, right? And it's not black or white. But we did it bringing together our technology teams, right? Because technology is a big part of that. But the other half of that group is what we call song. And the names doesn't exactly describe what they do, but they're really our experience team, our digital agency, and they're thinking about the human side of that experience because it really is about bringing both of those parts together. And we just published our song Life Trends, right? And it's about like how is life changing for people, right? It's people at the core. And I think that's where, this is all about how those experiences are going to change. Disney recently released the short Remembering, where we actually are now bringing the movie into the living room. And it was just like a scratch of the surface. It was one scene and one little thing that came into your living room. But when you think about then, okay, well, how does that spark the imagination of how those experiences are going to change in the future, and what's that going to feel like and look like, and what should it be, and what are all the implications in terms of trust and safety and privacy and da 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 da. Thinking about the human at the core, I think, is what's really key.
That's great advice. Brian, go ahead.
If you're building your career, I'd say the first thing to take into consideration is whatever it is that you think you're an expert at now, learn a bunch of other things. The world's absolutely going to change, I guarantee it. When I started out as a commercial photographer, there was no such thing as autofocus, auto exposure camera. There were no computers, there was no internet. There certainly were no technological games. I started out as a filmmaker background. And so if anything came out of the filmmaker background, it was learning how to be collaborative, as a producer director. And number two, stay the dumbest person in your circle always. So continually surround yourself with all sorts of intelligent people that are working in different categories. And if you're a brand, start by being the consumer. Think about brands that you really like to engage with. What would your experience with that brand really look like? Let's eliminate all that friction between the consumers and the brands. That's what Sizzle is aiming to do by cutting out all of the middle media that's making the cost of goods so expensive. Games are a huge new category of how consumers and brands are going to engage long term. So if you're a brand, keep looking for every opportunity you can to make impressions on a consumer that have value, to build long-term loyalty, to build a relationship. That's what's going to carry you long term.
That's great. John, bring it. Come
Yeah,
on, bring it.
So I think the next year is definitely bringing value. I think the last 20 years have been fairly solo and individualistic. So I think the next 20 years hopefully can be more community driven in terms of whatever you're doing, if it's media, realizing that whatever you're creating is not limited to whatever scope you feel you're creating, the little box that you're in now. So that music reference, where I'm very excited again about artists who've been locked to just doing 3-minute songs. I think the opportunity for an artist or a creator to be very much a 360 creator and express themselves in many different ways, for brands to engage in that relationship, for consumers to get value and engage as well in that relationship. So I think the kind of mixing together of brands and creators and consumers in an interactive way where they get value and rewards is kind of where things are going in the traditional, which I think is exciting. I'm a big fan of immersive theatre. So I think if you've never been to an immersive theatre experience, I recommend going to those. We have like actors around who are playing the characters. I think the world is going to come to us, whether it's again AR experiences and value and rewards. And I don't think it's about games per se. And I think this was the debate we had a lot of Roblox and talked a lot to Meta. I think it's about interactive experiences, and that's why I think it plays nicely into the advertising space. It doesn't have to be a game format. Just think about engaging your customer, your fan, whoever it is, in an interactive and kind of playful way, and providing value out of the experience, and hopefully rewarding them if they're giving you value. Give some value back again. So I would like someone to give me my flight to Iceland. right? And it'll be loyal for life.
Tina.
I would say my advice would be uncomfortable and spread the religion. And what I mean by that is we are all, I suspect everyone in this room is the pioneer in this space. You guys are at the forefront. We all are. And it's really scary. I wake up every day thinking, I have no idea what is going to happen, but these are my beliefs. I'm grounded in consumer principles, etc. I think that, it's hard to kind of be out there leading in innovation, leading in a new kind of consumer experience and a new behavior. And so it's okay to feel uncomfortable. That means you're doing something scary, new, and innovative. Spreading the religion. We all know, I hope, those who have experienced the metaverse in whatever way you have, when you experience it, it's pretty awesome. And so we have to, I would say, as people who put on experiences or create, metaverse products, we have to bring as many people into the fold as possible and give them a taste of what it feels like to be in the metaverse and what the benefits are. We think about that a lot at Wave, where we put on big tentpole concerts, and they're meant for a lot of the casual fans out there who are like, I don't know about that, but I love Justin Bieber, so I'm gonna go try this out. And once you get them in, they're so excited. They're so like, wow, this is just like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I may do this again. And so we have to continue to push out content. It can be live experiences. It can be gaming. We have to create those killer use cases to drive that mass adoption. And so that would be my advice to everyone in this room is let's spread the religion.
I love that. I love all of it. This is an incredible time. Obviously, I think if you've attended some of the earlier sessions, you recognize what I'm echoing there. And this is beyond the fourth industrial revolution. We have the fourth wave of consumer hardware coming, the fifth wave of innovation. We're in this kind of virtual, digital, metaverse environment right now. Eventually, it's going to go physical. Let's talk a little bit about. We got a minute left, so I want this to be. Last year was really the year of the metaverse. The year before that was NFTs. What do you predict? What is this year all about? If you could just guess, predict, what is 2023 about? Give us one word, one phrase. Keith, go ahead.
Access pass. Access that's granted to you through tokens that grant you access to virtual experiences or anything like that. I think that's going to be a massive trend this year.
I'm going to go outside the box, science tech. I think things like material science and how those change experiences and how that weaves into the metaverse or digital health, that kind of thing, wellness.
Moneymaker?
I'd go with frictionless technology. Eliminate everything that confuses a consumer group that doesn't understand what you're talking about and find a comfortable path for them to get engaged.
Yep, I'd agree on the dejargonization again. So I think this year hopefully will be the year of more mass adoption, so brands coming to the space, media companies coming in the space, and again moving from that investor era of high price ARPU to like lower price items that are fun around fandom and rewards.
I'd say AI as a means to accelerate content throughput. I think all of us here who put on experiences know how hard it is and how hard it is to put on shows on a regular basis. So I think generative art, what can be afforded by AI can really be a great accelerant in that content piece.
Second that one.
That's great. Well, that's it. We covered it, guys. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you guys all very much.